In this video, we're going to talk about the quotient of like bases. Okay, now quotient means divide. Okay, and we've seen like bases before, right? Our first one was product of like bases. Okay, now I'm going to do more than 3 examples this time. So write them small with me so we can really see them. Okay, because I want you to see all the patterns here. So here's x to the 5th over x to the 2nd. Okay, so let's talk about what this means, right? This is x to the 5th over x to the 2nd. Well, what happens here? Well, this is x divided by x, that's 1. You don't write that. X divided by x, that's 1. You don't write that. So this just becomes x to the 3rd. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, and notice I'm putting them pretty close together because I'm going to do 5 across here so you can really see, because there's a few different patterns I want you to observe. How about a to the 2nd over a to the 7th? Well, this time I have 2 a's on top, but I actually have 7 a's on the bottom. So when I cancel, what am I left with? I'm left with 1 over a to the 5th. Okay, and notice when there's nothing on top, I have to use that 1 as a placeholder. Now here, when there was nothing left on the bottom, I didn't have to write x to the 3rd over 1, okay, because x to the 3rd over 1 is, right, just like 5 over 1 is 5. But here, the placeholder is necessary on top, okay? Now what I want you to notice, what I want you to observe, is what's happening with the exponents here, right? How did I go from x to the 5th over x to the 2nd to x to the 3rd? Like, what's the shortcut? From a to the 2nd over a to the 7th, and this is 1 over a to the 5th. What's the shortcut? The shortcut is subtraction. Look, 5 minus 2 is 3. 2 minus 7 is negative 5. Now remember, a to the negative 5 is the same as 1 over a to the 5th. So what we're doing is we're subtracting. Okay, you subtract. And what we're subtracting is top exponent minus bottom exponent. Okay, and the reason is, right, is this canceling. That's subtraction, right? This is, I had 5 and I'm taking away 2 because I'm canceling it. Here I had 2, now I'm taking away 7. What does that mean? Well, I'm still taking away these 2, right? They're going to end up subtracting. 7 minus 2 is 5, but the 5 is left over on the bottom. Okay, now where this starts to get a little tricky is if you have something like this. Okay, now we can use the subtraction method. We could say, okay, this is negative 3 minus 5. Negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8. So what does that look like in my answer? That's 1. Here, let me write it down here. That's 1 over n to the 8th, right? That's n to the negative 8th. Okay, now, if I'm going to write it out the long way, what this would look like is I would say, okay, well, this n to the negative 3rd, because it's n to the negative 3rd, that's 3 n's on the bottom. And this n to the 5th, well, that one's already on the bottom, so it looks like this. Right? And there's nothing on top, we just use the 1 as a placeholder, right? The other way of thinking about this was like this. This was n to the negative 3rd minus 5. That becomes n to the negative 8th, which is this. Okay, so no matter which way you think about it, this would be your answer. Okay, now what you also see is problems that are a little bit longer like this. Okay, I have some numbers here and some exponents, right? All kinds of stuff. Now, this, again, is just a fraction. Now, we can write it out the long way, or we can use the shortcut, right? But what we see, right, this is going to be x to the 3rd minus x to the 1st. So what are we going to end up with? We're going to end up with x to the 2nd, right? This is x to the negative 2 over n to the 3rd. So that's n to the negative 5th. Well, that's going to be down here. Okay, now this is 10 divided by 5. Okay, this is 10 divided by 5. This is 2, right? 10 divided by 5 is 2. And where is the 2? It's on top because this larger number is on top. So here's the answer, right? And you can see the way that I did that. I want to show you kind of like an alternate way of doing it. You could say, okay, this is the 10. You can even kind of write it like this. You can be like, well, this is like 5 times 2. 10 is 5 times 2. Why does that matter? Well, because this 5 is on the bottom, it's going to cancel with that 5. And this is this, okay? This x is on the bottom. Now these n's, right, because this is n to the negative 2, that's down here. So this is n to the third, and here is that n to the second because it's negative. So when this cancels and this cancels, what are we left with? We're left with 2x to the square, x to the second power on top, and n to the fifth on the bottom. Okay, and then just one more example, really quick. Okay, here, if I were to, first let's look at the numbers, right? 12 divided by 3 is 4, but the thing is that the large number's on the bottom here, right? So this is going to be 4 on the bottom. And then this here, I have 3 minus 5 is negative 2. My p is going to end up being here. Okay, this ends up being 1 over 4p squared. And then here's kind of the longer way to write it out and see it. This is this. This 12 is the same as 3 times 4, and then 5 p's. So what happens? The 3 cancels, 3 p's cancel, and I'm left with nothing on the top, so there's my 1, my placeholder, and 4p squared on the bottom. Okay, so what we observe with the exponents, you can subtract, right? 5 minus 2 is 3. Okay, you can also kind of write it out the long way. Now remember, when you have a negative exponent, that, like, the first thing you should be doing is thinking, oh, well, like, that comes down to the bottom, right? This is the same as n to the third on the bottom. Okay, but you can subtract, you can use this. Okay, now with the numbers, like this, right, what I did is I divided. Okay, now remember, these are observations to help you take shortcuts, not to memorize. So the numbers get divided, and just make sure that you leave, right, the, like 10 divided by 5. Here, because the 10 was bigger, the 2 ended up on the top, whereas here, this was 12 divided by 3. The 4 is on the bottom because that bigger number was on the bottom. Okay, so let's try a few of these. Let's do... And then let's do one longer one. See if we can keep track of all this. Okay, go ahead and try those 3 problems before you continue on.